Good afternoon for everyone online. We're just giving a couple more minutes for supervisors to show up and we'll start this meeting.
So start over. This is the Abel Camarena, the chair for the Valencia Soil and Water Conservation District Board of Supervisors. I'd like to now call to order the March 21st, 2024 regular board meeting. And we have 4 board supervisors who are present. So I verify that we do have a quorum and can proceed. I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and we'll go from there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a former colleague here in attendance, Duana Draskevitz. So welcome, Duana. All right, so at this point of the agenda, topic number 1, we're at the agenda review with changes and approval. So are there any changes proposed at this time to the agenda as has been submitted? It looks like we're good. I'm not hearing any. Okay, that would be probably the right thing to do. We do have, in addition to the agenda, by way of information for the Dan Goodman Award, we were notified of late that this opportunity was presenting itself at this meeting. So we're going to go ahead and include that. And we are waiting for the recipient of that award to arrive. And when that happens, we will then take a break briefly from the regular agenda. But we will and include that. It's there's no decision. That's already been taken care of. This is mostly ceremonial. And so we appreciate that opportunity. So having said that, I'm not hearing any other changes at the agenda at this time. So acknowledging the ceremony of the Dan Goodman Award recipient, I would call for a motion on the agenda with that modification.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Supervisor Bonine, you have the floor.
Thank you. This is Supervisor Bonine. I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Thank you, Supervisor Bonine. Is there a second to the motion on the floor?
Supervisor Baca, I'm moved to second that.
Thank you, Supervisor Baca. It is moved and seconded that the agenda be approved as submitted with the acknowledgement that a ceremony will take place for the Dan Goodman recipient when that recipient arrives. I will now do a call for a vote. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. So moved. Motion carries unanimously. We will proceed then with the agenda as has been approved by motion. All right. Next order of business then is the approval of the February 15th, 2024 regular monthly board meeting minutes. Those were submitted in your package, and surely you had opportunities to identify any changes at this point. I would call for a motion to approve the meeting minutes as submitted.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Bonine, you have the floor.
This is Supervisor Bonine. I move with that we approve the February 15th, 2024 minutes.
Is there a second to the motion?
Supervisor Baca, I move to second.
Thank you, Supervisor Baca. The motion on the floor, we will now do a vote. The motion is to approve the February 15th, 2024 regular monthly board meeting minutes. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. Looks like we have a unanimous decision. Thank you very much. Okay, we're moving right along. We got a little bit of a late start, folks, but we're back on track here. So public comments. I did not receive any. Director Houtzinger, did you receive any public comments or any other board members?
Chair, Director Houtzinger did not, either in post office box nor in our emails.
I see. Okay. Very good. Supervisor Smith-Sharif, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's Vice Chair Smith-Sharif. It's not a public comment, but given our agenda was so full, I didn't report out on my meeting, going to that water meeting in Socorro. So I would like to be able to have that opportunity at maybe the next meeting. Just wanted to keep that on our radar screen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield.
Thank you for that addition for a future meeting, that information. We're now on item number 4, the district staff monthly report, and appreciate that report that was submitted for our review, and would ask that we, if there are some highlights that that the director and staff want to present at this point, we would do so. We're not looking for a regurgitation, as we've said before, so With that, I yield the floor to Director Houtzinger. Before you begin, Supervisor Smith-Desharif, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Given that we have to go through our audit report, it may take a long time. I'm just in the interest of brevity, and because we're going to have reports out from committee chairs, I think we can not go over that part of the district director's report and
I see.
everything else. And I yield. Thank you.
All right. So, by way of meeting efficiency, then, in the interest of time, we will dispense then with the district staff monthly report. That's been included in your packet. And so, oh, okay. I misunderstood what you were saying.
Sure.
Supervisor Smith-Desharif just clarified that we would have the monthly report, but not just the report out on the committee reports, correct? All right, thank you. Okay, so with that, a caveat, Director Houtzinger, please proceed.
I'll be brief. I think the highlights of this last month, another busy month, lots of good stuff happening, has a fire theme to it. And we convened a meeting here on this last Saturday of our local neighborhood residents who are concerned about fires and concerned about Stacy. And so we had a great meeting with them, including an excellent Q&A with our Valencia County Wildland Fire Captain, Rob Barr. Several weeks prior, on February the 28th, Johnny and I, with Yasmin Najmi and Corrales Fire Chief Anthony Martinez, we had a great meeting up in Corrales looking at shaded fuel breaks there as a possible path forward for the work down here in Valencia County. Lots of differences. It's owned by the city. It's the preserve there. So a lot of things that are different in Valencia than up there, but it is certainly one of the more ecologically thoughtful approaches. And the main reason for doing this meeting, and we hope it's a first in a series, is to strike upon a balanced approach between protecting fire against fire, reducing fire severity, while addressing imperatives from land managers to have ecological balance, and not only in a litigious manner, as far as ESA, but also just generally wanting to have the lands that we are managing thrive. And there's a history of fire management that is in conflict with that goal. So we're trying to get the fire professionals to tell us how they would go about the work that they're doing. So with that, I will stop and offer the microphone to Business Manager McCready.
Thank you, Director. This is Business Manager McCready. I'm sorry for the pause. I'm multitasking as we speak. The biggest thing that I want to share from my report this time is to ask for some feedback from everyone about how you all would feel if we went to an electric hand dryer instead of continuing to use paper towels. That's at the very end of my month, of my report, but that's the biggest takeaway that I'd like to have from it this month. And with that, I yield back.
Before you would do, Director Houtzinger, this is the chair. This is Abel Cameron speaking. That is an interesting idea. We're not prepared to make any kind of a decision or give direction at this point. So I think we can look forward to some more information and a decision at some future date on the hand dryer versus air dryer versus use of paper towels.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Bonine, you have the floor.
Thank you. This is Supervisor Bonine. I'm intrigued by the idea, but I'd like to hear some more, kind of pluses and minuses and, what costs, that sort of thing. Would, so maybe if at the next meeting we could have some sort of.
There is information, Richard, on cost. $37 and tax with 16 packs as compares to, I'm assuming Megan, that that's more expensive than the units if we had hand dryers. The big incentive, Supervisor Bonine, is the fact that we have a lot of kid traffic through here and they're not very good with paper towels and they make a mess. And it's a little bit more expensive, and it's a consumable that would just be nice to have less consumables as part of our environmental ethic. So this is the first I've heard of it, so I don't have a formed opinion.
And I thank you for the clarification. We're not in a position to make a decision because it's not on the agenda for a decision-making outcome. So let's entertain this idea in more detail, perhaps in April. All right. So again, this is the chair speaking, and we're moving on then with the rest of the report out on the district staff monthly report.
Laura, would you mind coming here? Yeah, just emphasis on brevity today.
Field trips are going great. I will focus on our events instead. This is Education Manager McCann. Our star party for we've got no rain. We got rain and clouds, but we still had 25 visitors here and had great presentations. Wish more people would have come down. I did put out an announcement that we would still be having it. We would do events indoors, but we had 25, but our food truck still showed. So we all had dinner and it was a great cozy time. Our other events this Saturday, we have Agriculture Appreciation Day. We're really looking forward to having a lot of information tables, vendors, and our presentations. And also, I'm not going to mention that one. Let's see. Okay, so that was the star party. There you go. So we have our flyer. I thought it was funny to have a cow on it because, well, ranching. So we have 3 presentations. We do have, thanks to Supervisor Cordova, we have a food truck. The Oasis Cafe has a food truck and they will be here. And let's see. Oh, and vendors and information tables. So it should be a great time. Our next event after that is going to be our Earth Day Fiesta, and I will have a flyer for that probably done next week. We've already got the presentations ready, and I have some vendors coming. By all means, invite people to the events. Let me know if there's any particular group or vendor that you would like to include, and we'll just go from there. Otherwise, in May, we have our lavender workshop coming up, and that'll be very exciting. And I'll leave that for Johnny to say more about.
Let me just offer this as kudos to Laura for the development of this agenda, and it's great how we're doing multitask healthy soil programs and these other outreach efforts. I think it's a great connecting of very related subject matter, so kudos to you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Any questions on my report?
Yes, this is the chair. I have a question or a clarification.
Yes.
With respect to the food vendors that will be here, everyone that wants to buy their own lunch pays for it, correct? I mean, lunches aren't being provided.
Lunch is not provided. That's correct. This was our way to provide that opportunity to the public without great expense to the district.
Very good. Thank you for that clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
Supervisor Smith-Sharif, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This is Vice Smith-Sharif. I'm sorry I couldn't make the star party because I just couldn't get here on that date. But I wanted to ask the district director if he could scroll up or back, I guess.
Back to those pictures.
Had, I think, the Salinas mission.
Yeah. Salinas Pueblo missions.
Yeah. Could you tell us what they shared? Those folks shared. I'm out of curiosity.
Oh, absolutely. So Salinas Pueblo Missions is it's a national monument, but it's run by the National Park Service. And they are, one of the interesting things that they contribute to the night sky is they are actually a dark sky park. And you have to go through a process to get that designation. They also talked to us about the cultural significance of the artifacts that are there and the structures that are still there from the Pueblo missions. And they also recommended that we brought all kinds of pamphlets and information on their site, and they were going to bring a telescope, but that didn't happen. But they focus a lot on the night sky because they're a dark sky park. And so they were gracious enough to come out and present. And the one thing that I thought was interesting is they said Valle de Oro in Albuquerque has actually qualified as an urban dark sky area. And I thought, oh man, we could so qualify as a dark sky, urban dark sky. So I want to look into that and the paperwork for that. But I've been busy with Ag Appreciation Day. So when we are done with all that, I will look into that paperwork because that'd be a nice designation for us. Oh, and just for Supervisor Baca, one of our presentations is, what is an SWCD? That was my idea, was from him.
Supervisor Smith-Sharif, you have the floor.
Very much. This is Smith Sharif. I just had a follow-on comment, and that's why I asked about the Salinas Pueblo, because when we applied for the Rivers and Trails grant with the National Park Service, I guess their folks had looked into Salinas Pueblo missions, that if we got this Rivers and Trails thing, they have a really good outreach to youth. And so it's a potential partner on other levels. So I'm very happy to see that they came. That's just great. And thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield.
Well, thank you very much. That's excellent. And I will keep that partnership going. And we were very excited about that. And they were excited to maybe have us to present at their park as well. So, or at the monument.
This is Chairman Camarena. Thank you for that report out. Is Johnny Chavez, are you going to report out, or? Okay.
Chair, Supervisors, this is Johnny Chavez. There are several big topic in my report. Some of the bigger ones is the Youth Conservation Corps. We were accepted into this grant cycle, so we have that coming up. We were able to get support 7 youth members through it. That we're in the process of doing interviews, and we have a little over 8 possible candidates, but of course we only can pick 7 altogether. Also, we're getting our East Valencia Urban Garden program up and running, working with the county with the money they were able to grant us to get some preparations, as it is a little too early to still put stuff in the ground. May 10th is around where you want to start putting vegetables in the ground in El Cerro and Middle Lake. At Whitfield, we're going to be having a event here called the Turkey Sanctuary Planting. That will happen on the 30th. At Stacy Unit, we're working with the forestry and the contractor to do some work over there to get rid of most of the invasive species. We're keeping at least 6 to 7 for habitat. And at Rio Ball Conservation Area, we're pretty much done there for now. Working with with our forestries, maybe they could come back and do some pile rearrangement for us to make it easy on us, so we don't have to rely on YCC for that. And those are the highlights for me.
This is Chairman Camarena. Thank you for that, Program Manager, Conservation Program Manager Chavez. Anything else then under this particular topic?
I'll just mention, this is Director Haltzinger. I'll just mention the last page in Johnny's report shows a drone photograph from February the 24th, and it's highlighting the end of phase 2 at our Raucci thinning project. And as I have discussed with the leadership, we have an overabundance of mulch, and we are now in the process of doing a thoughtful record-based distribution of this mulch. I have talked to the state forestry lady, Marissa Goodwin, our point of contact. She thinks there might be room to have some transportation, especially of the piles underneath trees in the interior area under this contract, or perhaps this fall under the second contract. Our intent has been to do a lot of the relocating of these mulch piles via our YCC effort, but my vice asked me to check into this, and so I have. On that, she's going to visit with the contractor on Monday and see where he's at budget-wise and time-wise.
This is Chairman Cameron. Thank you for that report out. Let's continue to move on through the agenda then. We're now at the updates/partner reports, correspondence, and other. And so we'll begin this section of the agenda with the NMDA monthly report from Katie Mechenbier. I'm looking up there and I don't see her either. So, okay, she may circle back or join us. I don't know for sure. Let's move on then to the monthly report from the NRCS. And is that April?
Yeah. Nope. It's
oh, there's
me.
Nick.
Hey,
okay. Hey,
Yeah,
welcome.
this is Nick
Welcome
Goodman.
back.
Yeah,
Goodness.
thanks. I just got
Oh.
back from a 5-month detail as the
Oh.
wildlife biologist for the
Oh,
state.
wow.
So I'm officially
Oh.
back though now.
Cool. Welcome back.
Yeah. So first off, I'll say Katie Mechenbier's on vacation, so she won't be joining us today. At least that's what the Coronado SWCD mentioned this morning.
Okay. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Yep. So for my update, first off with our staff updates. So I'm back now, so I should be attending these at least for the time being. We are getting new staff on board. Dale Velasco is going to be starting in Albuquerque, and then we're still trying to hire up in Cuba. And then we might hire a partner position in Los Lunas and one up in Cuba. So if those happen, I'll let you know and I'll try to bring them to your meetings. But we're definitely getting staffed up, which is good. When I started, I had like 4 staff, but now I'm up to 9 and we should be at 11 when we're fully staffed here. We just have a lot of funding with our Inflation Reduction Act money, along with the Farm Bill. So it's a lot of funding and a lot of work that we're doing. So it's good that we're getting more staff on board. Some of that work that we're doing is our EQIP IRA. So that's the Environmental Quality Incentive Program. We have an application deadline for our IRA ones. That's with the Inflation Reduction Act, and that's April 26th. So if you know of anybody who's interested in that, they can still apply. So have them reach out to myself or to the Los Lunas office. The other main thing I wanted to touch on is the first one on my news release. It's our funding opportunity for technical assistance for outreach and education. I sent this a while back to Andrew. This is basically a funding opportunity that was created for the SWCDs to do conservation outreach workshops, like technical workshops, field days, soil health things, anything like that. It's a 1-year thing, and you can get between $10,000 and $20,000. So they're really trying to push people or push SWCDs to apply. I think we should have some better response. Last year we didn't have any SWCDs apply, but in the years past, I know CUDOT has gotten one of these, and I think Coronado might be going for one this year. So let me know if you're interested, and I can work with you. The deadline to apply for this is April 13th, so you need to get on this sooner rather than later. And it's through the grants.gov. So you need like a SAMS or a DUNS number, but I think you guys got that straightened out. But let me know if you have any questions on that or any questions on anything else, and I'd be happy to answer it. But that's all that I have for my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Nick? Okay, I'll go with the first hand that I see, Director Houtsinger, and then we'll go to Supervisor Smith-Sharif.
Hi, Nick. This is Andrew, Director Houtsinger. Good to have you back on board. I just wanted a quick kudos to your staff who attended our meetings in your absence, always had interesting report outs, and have generally just been really accessible. We had April over here last week on a meeting that she and Johnny Chavez arranged to review these NMDA healthy soil proposals, because as you'll recall, the NRCS is doing the site conservation plans. So I just wanted you to hear from one of your partners that your staff really stepped up to the plate and has been very helpful in your absence, but it is still great to have you back.
Thanks, Andrew. That's great to hear. And also April and Jill from up in Cuba is going to be coming on Saturday for your event.
Nice. Great.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Smith-Sharif, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Nick, I have two questions. It's Vice Chair Smith-Sharif. If we have any questions, or if we wanted somebody to take a look at the New Mexico Conservation Technical Assistance for Outreach and Education, if our board approves going after that, is someone in the office able to just take a look at it, possibly to say you're on the right track, or, oh no, this is never going to, do you know what I mean? Can we get some input? That's one question.
Yeah, definitely. You could send it to me. And I sent Andrew like the thing to fill out, or the news release, but I also sent him an example of one that was done in the past to try to help maybe use as a template, or, spur some inspiration. So, but to answer your question, yes, you could send it to me. And actually last year I was one of the ones who judged and selected them. So I'd be happy to help you and give you some tips, and hopefully help you get yours selected.
Well, thank you for that. My second question, if I may, is I've been reviewing grant opportunities, because I don't think you were here at the last meeting. I guess you weren't. So we have a new committee formed called the Funding Opportunities Committee, and we get from our congressional delegation a long list of many sources, primarily federal, for grant application opportunities. And here's my question. I saw one for the Natural Resource Conservation Service. It's called, the grant program is Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production, Competitive Grants. Special district governments, which I imagine would include organizations such as ours, Soil and Water Conservation Districts, can apply. The deadline is April 9th. It's for planning and implementation activities, and that support the development of urban agriculture and innovative production. So, am I correct in gathering that we could apply for something like that if the board were to decide to do so?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's another one you can apply for, and that's one that I think I sent to Andrew earlier this week as well, and I should have mentioned, but yeah, thank you for bringing that one up. But yeah, that one's definitely seems like another good one. I don't know how competitive it will be. I know the New Mexico one, we've seen good results of people that apply tend to get funded pretty well. So, but this one might be, I just don't know as much about it. So okay. Yeah, that's, I guess, all I can say on that.
Okay, thank you. It has $6,100,000 in the pot, so it'll probably be competitive, but you don't get anything unless you ask. With that, thank you, Nick, and I yield,
sure.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I think that one, just one last thing on that. That one's a nationwide one, whereas the New Mexico one is just in New Mexico. But I would recommend, you could always apply for both of them. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman.
This is Chairman Camarena. Supervisor Bonine, you have the floor.
Thank you. Dick, this is Richard Bonine. I just wanted to kind of echo Andrew's sentiments about your staff have been just awesome to work with. April has been, she's probably frustrated with me because I haven't been as responsive as I should have been, but she's just always there and has done an awesome job getting, working with our producers and getting what they need and getting all the paperwork done and getting things funded. So I appreciate her efforts. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you. This is Chairman Camarena. At this point, we're going to pause on our agenda. As we described earlier, we do have our Dan Goodman Award recipient here with us at this moment, and we would like to proceed with that acknowledgement. And so I will ask Vice Chair Smith-Sharif to make the presentation, as she chaired the committee that reviewed all the applications. Supervisor Smith-Sharif, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, it's my pleasure to invite in just a moment our grant recipient for the this part of the year's Dan Goodman Award. Ms. Rio Romero really submitted to us a very thorough application with experience in the areas that this grant covers. It's an award for people interested in environmental improvement and conservation. And it really gave me, on a personal note, such pleasure to see someone had really put so much thought into it. It was complete. And here's a young person that is interested in these areas that we're working so hard on. So, I just felt like, wow, we have this chance to meet a kindred spirit who maybe someday may come in with us. Who knows? These are the kinds of things that happen in this world. So I think what I should do is actually probably call you up here to the front, and we'll everyone is going to give you a round of applause, and we're going to take a picture of you receiving the check. No, up here in front of everybody.
I have her application on the screen.
So,
Yes. Or yeah,
oh, okay.
yeah.
So supervisors, if you'll join us in this acknowledgement. And I think we're going to take the picture back this direction, Rio. Thank you.
We have a photographer in the house.
Connie will take a picture as well, so. Stand right in the center. Center.
So I'm really happy today to provide you with this certificate of achievement to be the recipient of this cycle's Dan Goodman Award. We're trying to do two a year, so you're for this cycle. And here is your check for $750. You're welcome. Thank you, guys. So now, and I'd like to take if we can both look at the camera. Wonderful. Great, and let's all take a picture with maybe you holding.
Richard, can you
Yeah,
join
and
us here?
Richard, yeah, we need you to come
Yeah.
on.
So I'll move over this way. Yeah, I know, I me too. 3, 2, 1.
Great.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations and thank you.
Welcome, yeah, and we have programs, and so we hope you'll take a look at them. We're hiring.
I will.
Yeah, please. And you're welcome to stay or you can go, but we're just really delighted that you came, and
Thank
thank you
you.
for applying, and good
Yeah,
luck
you're
with your
welcome.
work. Yeah,
I will. Okay, I have to go, but
Yeah.
thank you so much for having me
Yeah.
and for this.
you're very welcome. You earned it. All right.
Bye.
Bye now.
Best way to.
All right, that was a delight. It's a great program. We've been making those kind of awards for, seems like forever, but a long time. And it's great to see young people step up and seek to be acknowledged for their work and their interests, and for us to be able to do that. All right, so we'll continue to proceed then with the agenda. We were at item number, excuse me, 5, down to the MRGCD monthly report. I didn't see one in the packet. I don't think we have anyone online at this point that I can see. But that doesn't mean my vision's that great. So we'll move on then to the Friends of Whitfield monthly report. Anyone on board here?
So I believe Rob Raucci is on vacation this week.
Okay, so we don't have a connection there at this month's meeting. We always enjoy our Friends of Whitfield monthly report and all their hard work and their good things that they do. Supervisor Smith-Day-Sharif, you have a question or comment? You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's Vice Chair Smith-Day-Sharif. I just wanted to point out we really are lucky to have the Friends, and it'll be great when Rob or someone designated is at our next meeting and our events coming up, because I've been taking a look at these grant opportunities, and there are many that they could apply for as well that could help their organization help us. So with that, I yield.
Thank you. This is Chairman Camarino taking back the floor. So with that then, for this particular agenda topic, to close it out, the correspondence and announcements, do we have such at this time?
Director Houtzinger says we do not in his records.
Okay. Very good. Then we're going to keep moving. It's we're at a time a little bit. And so the next item is topic item number 6, the EVUGP, the East Valencia Urban Gardens Program funding update. And I'll turn the floor over to our Vice Chair Smith-Day-Sharif.
Mr. Chairman. We met on February 22nd, Priscilla, Johnny, and myself, and we had a good discussion on some opportunities to go forward. And so that is why today I wanted to speak about some funding. In your board packet, Megan uploaded, and maybe we can call it up the some information that we provided to the county and to ask the county to help fund this. And Andrew did that, I think, on in January of this year, and the county agreed to $10,000 support. So Megan uploaded the. It was given to us that they're going to award $10,000 in the form of a purchase order. That purchase order says Valencia County for the community gardens to utilize funds to operate community garden for El Cerro and Meadow Lake communities within Valencia County. And so for professional services, $10,000. In the terms and conditions of that, on number 6, it says all materials and services are subject to approval based on the description on the face of the purchase order or appendages thereof. And it does say, see the appendage, which was this chart that you see up on the screen now. Substitutions are not permitted without prior approval of the requesting department. And I take it from that, I'm bringing that up for a reason that if we need to modify this a bit, we could. So I'm going to come back to that thought, but what we did in the YCC, Johnny was the lead on the YCC, and I happened to come in one day and say, well, why don't we ask for more and for a longer period, because that way we can cover the gardens. So that's one of the things that was in the work plan for the that was approved by YCC, and its improvement to 2 community gardens. So what we proposed, and it was accepted, was that YCC crew will rotate through gardens, learning about and practicing regenerative agriculture and soil and water conservation techniques in hot and arid settings, including vegetable planting and harvesting. So 7 crew members for 26 weeks. We think that, and they would rotate through. The means and hows and the wherefores and the whys and all of that would be under the purview of the district staff, but we've got that part covered. And if you take that plus the $10,000 stream of funding from the county, the gardens can probably be close to self-sustaining this year. Now, why is it important? Because we have costs coming up in the budget that we hadn't anticipated, like increased insurance costs and these kinds of things. But when we wrote the Economic Development Administration disaster relief grant, everything has to have this economic impact so that communities can cope with disasters in the future. There should be some sort of economic impact. And one of the things that we talked about, if we get this grant, is that there'll be some teaching over at the Stacy unit with a solar powered greenhouse and raised beds. And so us already having some community gardens was instrumental in proving that we had the expertise to do that. And we were told by our New Mexico Economic Development Administration detailed person, Trish Corbus, that we actually could probably get funding to help staff things like that in the future, or for that kind of program. And so I think, it would be ideal if somebody in the community took these on, but right now, if we have the funds to do it, I don't want to see the program die. So I'm presenting you today with these facts. 1, labor. 7 YCC. I think that covers, there'll be time within the week for the conservation program manager or the district director to determine, how many hours they spend up there. The interns or assistants, they became known as, it was booked in for like 2 hours. What was it, 2 hours a week?
2 hours a week.
Yeah. So with this staffing, we can really get a lot done and probably not even require that they be there. Plus, we foresee in the YCC grant having a lead YCC person, so that person can do a little bit of supervision too, I would imagine. Now, how much garden management do we need? Well, maybe we only need one garden manager to like be there and keep things going on a sort of physical plant basis, if you will, and supervisory basis. Maybe we recruit volunteers to come in and learn. And you'll see I'm going to come back to that at the end. So I don't know that we really need to do what we told the county we would do, and we can go back for a budget adjustment, or, a programmatic adjustment. Maybe we just want to have one garden manager that can oversee both and have the expenses of maybe going between the gardens covered. So I kind of ran some numbers. If you're paying somebody to propose $20 an hour for 20 hours a week for 16 weeks, which is how these numbers were calculated, that would cost $6,400. If you paid the person $20 an hour for 25 hours a week, 16 weeks, that's $8,000. If you paid someone for 30 hours a week times 16 weeks at $20, that's $9,600. I'm trying to keep my presentation today is to try and keep this almost budget neutral if possible. So maybe we have a part-time garden manager and just one. I'm going to ask Johnny and our district director to weigh in here, but I think we can do this. I think we have the information ahead. Now, Johnny also sent, I don't know if everyone got this, an email saying, because one of the requested items from the county was to help pay for a hoop house or greenhouse for each garden. The ones that we had have been really destroyed by wind. So do we get something that has a steel base on the bottom somehow to hold it in? I don't know. Johnny's quote was for a 7x8x12 structure. It would be from Home Depot on sale, $1,953 and change each. If you got a smaller one, 7x8x8, it's $1,434. And there are also some other varieties, 6x10 aluminum with steel base. So maybe I'm hoping that we could think about purchasing something or voting for the purchase of something if we need to with a certain spending authority, but to try and keep it budget neutral is what I'm saying. The outreach was not going to be, that's envisioned in this here, was not going to be at the cost to the county, but here is where the fundraising committee, if the board so desires, could come in. These are the kinds of activities the gardens can support: outreach to the public, workshops for the public on soil and water conservation techniques, mulching techniques, hands-on gardening in arid areas, and the like. And that's exactly what Nick Goodman has told us, and Javier, the NRCS head for the whole state, said, that's what this is for. You guys should apply for it. So if it's the board's pleasure, we could do those activities if we apply for the grant. And we could also apply, and that's why I asked Nick the question, for urban agriculture and innovative production, that if we had the time, because that's not due until April, but we'd have to get the authority today, we could apply for additional funding to help round out this program. So that's what I wanted to say, and I'm happy to take questions. And before I entertain any, maybe Andrew and more specifically Johnny could let us know, could we manage those gardens and not have a burden on your plate so much, Johnny, with all the things that we have going, if we just had one garden manager with time at both, and how much time would be required? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The chair, supervisor, Johnny Chavez, conservation program manager. I think it should work. I don't see why it wouldn't. Probably about the same time I usually use already. So I don't think it'll take any more time than what I'm already doing from last year.
Yes.
My specific question is, should we get, do we need to hire a garden manager? We have the funds to do so. And if we do, how many hours can we hire one to help manage both places at 20 hours a week, or what's the suggestion there?
I'm going to give this over to our district director, Andrew Hudsicker.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you, board. I think all sorts of things are possible. With due respect, Vice Chair, I wish you had included me on these conversations, because I've been working on this for months and years, and you not bringing me into the loop makes me, it's more difficult for me to do my job. I think one thing that we might be losing sight of is a big push for what we've done historically at the gardens was in community hiring. That's one of the biggest accomplishments that we can talk about. We may or may not get a YCC. Right now, we don't have any YCC applicants from the community. So one of the big pluses that we've been able to talk about, and this has been newsworthy, is the ability that we've hired 2 individuals out of the community. So I strongly, without any hesitation, think at the bare minimum, we hire one, and we have an excellent one in mind. So I mean, the competition right now, our concept has been to go competitive. We're way behind on our recruitment piece for a handful of projects, but we wanted to be competitive this time and have interviews. We've been less than happy with some of the performance at one of the gardens. We've been very happy with performance on another garden. So I have a selection that I think would work well, but I just want us to not lose sight of the fact that it's in community hiring that is one of the big advantages of the EVUGP programs. And so I think that goes both to YCC hiring and to at least my opinion, for what it's worth, is that we hire at least one garden manager, and we really try hard to have that individual come from the community up there. Thank you for the opportunity to provide some input.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I thank you, District Director and Conservation Program Manager. So I think what I'm hearing is one garden manager to oversee both, and I think you've recommended in emails that it would be the current garden manager for, was it Meadow Lake? Olga Cervantes, was that the last name? So that she's from the community. She's done a really good job. She's actually appeared in a Friends of Whitfield video. She was really excellent. I mean, she's really rock star. So, I think, is 20 hours for both enough? Or I mean, I'm trying to get a feel for you guys on how much money we need, and because we probably have to go back to the county to a little bit on this. Thank you.
Another response. Thank you, Vice Director Heltzinger. We went to 20 last year. Before that, it was 16. So continuing to up the pay scale doesn't seem mandatory right now. But you never know what your recruitment is going to be until you actually put the time and money and effort into doing the recruitment. I think we don't know until we ask her. But if we're struggling to make this volume value neutral, and we're trying not to dip into our base funds to support this program, I would just offer the opinion, let's start at 20. That's a brand. We just added $4 an hour to this position last year. So the need to go to 20, much less 20 or 22, 25 seems a little early. I would like the board to support us to make an offer to Olga under the terms of, you guys tell me what to do, but I think I'd be surprised if she doesn't take us up on the offer to repeat the work here at $20 an hour, but rather instead of 20 hours, maybe we add another 10, since we're thinking of giving her a second garden, and she may have no interest in any of this, right? So let's be clear that we don't have. I've planted the seed with her months ago. Who knows if she's interested? If it's not her, I strongly suggest it's worth our time to then do a wider recruitment, and we fill the position as best we can, and it may take us a handful more weeks to get there. But there's some input.
Mr. Chairman, okay, I'm I think I don't know if we need a motion on that, but I think that if we can get someone from the community, if 20 hours isn't enough, somewhere between 20 and 30. I mean, if we made it 25, it would be a lot more budget neutral. But I'm going to leave that to. I don't know if we need a motion. What I think we do need is a motion, though, to authorize or to ask the Funding Opportunities Committee to go after that NRCS grant that's written for New Mexico. And if we had time to try and go after the other one that I mentioned. So the way we structured the committee was that the committee, can work on these things with staff. If staff doesn't have enough, the committee can do it. But if we have those funding pots and they're so designated to this kind of work, so that's what I'm hoping for. And with that, I yield. I'll take any questions, and I know we should be moving along. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. This is Chairman Camarena. I think we need closure around the question on the table about supporting this program through the hiring of a garden manager. The clock is running, and so we need somebody on board if we're going to make this work. And also, I think the idea of pursuing additional funding is always a good idea when we're trying to help this particular program stay viable, and as much community involvement as we can have through either volunteerism or through hopefully a hire. I think we need to make the money that we do have go as far as we can, and then I think it's wise to minimize the impact to our base budget as much as we can. And so it seems like we need a motion to go ahead and authorize the offering of a job to the individual that we have in mind. And it seems prudent to offer $20 an hour, which is pretty substantial. I mean, you look around at who's hiring and what they're offering. It's anywhere from $14 to $17 or $18 an hour. So I think we have some track record there from last year. So it seems to make sense to me to stick with that. And then do the outreach in the community as has already been underway, and try to enlist that continued community engagement in these gardens, and then the Funding Opportunities Committee can proceed. You do the staff work, or that's what the committees do, is they go and grab all this information, bring it back with a proposal for the board to entertain. So that's what I've been hearing. That's how I've processed this. I don't know if I've got that right or not.
Yeah, except for, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the grants, those two grants, the one for the outreach from NRCS that
Yes.
you said we better apply for.
Right.
That is due
Okay.
on April 13th. That's before our next board meeting. And the other one is due on April 9th. So we would need to have support for going after that, whether or not we're able to meet it. But we can't really do it unless we have a motion. That
We have agreed amongst ourselves to have board approval for efforts to pursue grants. And so I think we could have a motion for that. Maybe this is a couple of motions.
Yeah.
Supervisor Baca, you have the floor.
Yes, Supervisor Baca. I want a motion to push forward on offering the position for outreach, the position for the garden manager. And I yield to Olga, and I yield to the floor.
Supervisor Bo, 9 seconds.
It's been moved and seconded that we proceed to offer a job as garden manager to Olga Cervantes. Is that? And I would just kind of edit, if I may, at $20 an hour for the 20 hours, just as a little. Well, I did hear 30, so if not to exceed 30. All right, let's add that. So that's a good point. So let's have that. Supervisor Baca, you okay with those modifications to your motion, or you want to reframe it, or?
Supervisor Baca, yeah. We'll modify the motion to include the $20 an hour for 30 hours, being responsible for both gardens and Meadow Lake and Osero Mission.
Okay. Does that work? Supervisor Bonan, were you going to second? I did. Okay. Let's move to say, all right. So we had the modifications. The motion's been made and seconded, and we'll now do and modified as recorded, and we will now do a vote. All those in favor by the uplifted hand. Okay. Unanimous. So the motion carries. All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Bonan, you have the floor.
I just really want to stress, though, the importance of the community. You know, I'm sure the YCC can help, but they're not I don't think they should be a replacement. You know, it needs to be, if it's going to thrive, it needs to be a community effort. With that, I would also move then that the funding committee, I think of
Funding Opportunities Committee,
the Funding Opportunities Committee pursue the 2 NRCS opportunities.
there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second to the motion?
Supervisor Baca, I second that motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that the Funding Opportunities Committee pursue the NRCS grants. The appropriate grants has been discussed here that would assist in the management of the East Valencia Urban Gardens Program. We will now do a vote. All those in favor, so indicate by the uplifted hand. All right. Motion carries. Now I know Supervisor Vice Chair Smith-Sharif that there's a clock running here, and so you know anything that you need by way of assistance, if I can help in that, I'd be glad to. I think the director and Johnny have some ideas and some things that they can assist you with as well. Okay.
And you know, if there's a way that we are able to get, you know, advertise to get, if Olga's not interested, to get someone from the community and get some community volunteers, maybe we come back to the board to say that volunteerism, maybe there should be a stipend so that we keep community engagement, and you have to incentivize community engagement. So with that, I yield and I thank everybody for their input on this.
All right. Thank you, Vice Chair Smith-Sharif. All right, let's proceed then to item number 7, the FY23 audit and AUP exit conference with IPA Lee Baldwin. Director Houtsinger?
He's coming on any time now. He said to be on a little bit after 5. He's not joined in yet, so I suggest we go to 8 and we'll circle back.
All right. So we will then proceed to item 8 on the agenda and circle back to item 7 as soon as we have participation from the IPA Lee Baldwin. All right. So the Personnel Committee has been involved in interviews of applicants for the VISTA volunteer program, and we've had a strong interest, very good candidates. One of the barriers, if you will, economic barriers, was the housing question, and we've discussed that in the past. And even though there's a weekly stipend of $429, when you look at what housing costs, particularly rentals and such, that doesn't leave a whole lot to live on after you pay for housing and utilities and all that. And so several of our applicants dropped out when they realized that was too much of a reach for them. No, I didn't say all of them. I just said most of them. We do have a VISTA volunteer that's been contacted and interviewed, and I'm going to turn that time over to Vice Chair Smith-Sharif to update us on that.
I was asked on behalf of the committee to check references. Maybe I don't know something, so I'll just briefly ask the director. Is there something I don't know? I didn't know that. I didn't think Kayla had dropped out. Okay. Okay. All right. So I checked references. The committee, the district director interviewed several people. The committee interviewed his top person, whose name was Martha. She seemed like a really good fit, but she got overwhelmed with how much there might be to do, and she isn't ready to come here until September 1. So she withdrew. She did write a very nice email saying maybe in the future, once she moves to New Mexico, because I think her son is here and that's her plan, she might be interested in working for us down the road. So always nice to have good leads on good folks. Okay, Juliet was the first that her name is Juliet Angulo, and I checked references. They were glowing, but I reached out to folks before I reported out because I wanted to see if they'd be available. And Juliet cannot afford the stipend. She can't afford to live in New Mexico with basically $300 a month for housing. So she withdrew. I checked references for Kayla Borkman, who graduated recently from the university, from New Mexico Tech, just down the line in Socorro. I got like really detailed and stellar recommendations, and both persons said we'd be lucky to have. And this one of them, she worked in a department at Tech, where she did such a great job that she convinced this group to realize they really needed a full-time technical writer and grants person. So the committee, I checked the references. This person's available and has found housing for $300 a month in Albuquerque, and would take the position if we offered the position as the VISTA volunteer. It's not really at a cost to the district. This is funded through AmeriCorps, a federal government program. And I mean, there'll be some things that, I don't know if there's a laptop or something, but basically this is to add capacity to the district. So I think we land on, if Kayla is still available, that we would offer the position to Kayla if the board so chooses. And that really should be in the form of a motion, I suppose, Mr. Chairman, and I yield.
So are there any questions regarding this opportunity at this time from any of the board members?
Supervisor Baca. As a freshman on the board, can you explain to me what VISTA is exactly?
Maybe Andrew is best at this. I mean, I can say that it is a program of the federal government. I don't know that I brought all of my notes with me. That is very much interested in the alleviation of poverty by having folks who come in as volunteers, but their volunteerism is paid for by the federal government. I think it's a program that initiated under the administration of President Kennedy, and two AmeriCorps VISTAs, they're often, it's really one and the same program, who are on the Friends group. They met through AmeriCorps, and they're huge advocates of it. So if it's with your pleasure, Mr. Chairman, I think the district director should finish the rest of that question.
Hey, thanks, Nick, for the question. It's a good one. In a nutshell, VISTA, as the vice articulated, has two pillars. One pillar is building local organization capacity, and to build that to empower the second pillar, which is poverty alleviation. And so it's a really wide-ranging social program, has all sorts of different applications. In essence, you're kind of dealing with this bell curve. Folks who just retired or are about to retire, and folks who just got out of college. Those are your most active applicants into the VISTA process. I've done hundreds of hours on this project. Originally, we were working with this Alan Comp fellow a year and a half ago, right after the fire, and he really pushed the need to have two VISTAs, and so we've worked our butts off to get two subboarding, and ended up VISTA has had some rough. That nationally has had some rough budget years, and so that two position has gotten reduced to one. So I think there's going to be some challenges to getting someone on board for tomorrow. As I understand it, there is a required orientation that has to be attended. I'll just be frank, I'm not interested in bringing another young person into this team right now when I'm so concerned about what I view as an unsupportive, toxic leadership dynamic with the director. If I'm going to be managing this position, I really have a challenge when I feel like I'm in shifting sands in my relationship with the two of you. Today's not the day to have that conversation, but I just want you to hear my personal opinion that I'm concerned about how I'm going to bring a young, impressionable person, especially with this selection. If we go to Kayla, who this will be her first job out of college for the most part, is my understanding. If I'm not feeling trusted and I'm not feeling like the board has my back and is supporting me, so I will stop there.
This is Chairman Camarena. This has been one of those efforts that was undertaken and in a manner in which really was never cemented concretely in terms of what the outputs would be. One of the cautions that I've tried to provide to us from my experience is that not all the low-hanging fruit is worth going after. And so when we decide to do so, we've got to go in eyes open and try to make the best of an opportunity that's presented. There's lots of things that people a lot of places people would want us to go and play in their sandbox. And this program has merit. It's been around for decades. It has a noble architecture in place and process. And there are procedures and requirements that have to be addressed and understood. And so we're attempting to try to make something out of this opportunity. And the deliverables on it, I think, are yet to be established. We talk a lot about grant writing, and we can always use help with that. And this may be someone who can help us as they're directed to a particular grant opportunity. There may be some other discoveries along the way that could help bolster the district's capacity. And this would be the first time out the chute. We've not done this before. Volunteers always come with supervisory demands. You know, they need direction, they need correction, and attention all along the way. And so we have to be ready to embrace that and onboard someone that is going to come fresh, eyes wide open, lots of excitement, and is going to be looking for some reinforcement of their expectations, because they're coming here as well to gain something, not just to give. And so we've participated as a personnel committee. Vice Chair Smith Sharif and myself are the two members of the personnel committee, and our director. I was just really trying to highlight the supervisor's participation there, Director Hausinger. So this is where we find ourselves, and we've attempted to try to identify someone that could be in that position of helping us. But it does come with an impact to time and management and program balancing. And as you've heard the director, he's nervous about onboarding someone right out of college. This was not my first reaction towards this person. Just on paper was like, wow, right out of college. But I trust that our vice chair has done due diligence in determining that this is someone who has some grounding and writing experience and working with others that could be materially helpful to us. Obviously, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I support the vice chair in making an effort to try to see what comes of this opportunity. I don't think it's a big gamble, personally. Yes, there's some time impact, and the deliverables may not be quite established at this point, but I think there's an opportunity to crystallize that with someone who's got fresh eyes, energy, And oftentimes, when we're so engaged in the trenches, we no longer see the obvious. It's right before us, but we don't see it because we're locked into a particular way of thinking or doing. And so someone from the outside can say, have you thought about? So that may be the one upshot. How much is that worth? Well, if the person is willing to make themselves available and we're willing to assist in that relationship, then it may be worth something. How much, I don't know. But I think in this case, we've invested, as the directors indicated, hundreds of hours, which, yeah, well, okay, which I was kind of taken aback by that characterization, but a lot of time. And so the opportunity before the board, and I'll step back here in a sec, is for any questions for clarification, to get your minds wrapped around what this really is about and where you want to land on it. Okay, I'm going to step back and let the Vice Chair, Supervisor Smith-Day-Sharif, have the floor.
Chairman, one of the things I understand is that if we were to make a decision to offer the position to Kayla, we can still meet the requirement of VISTA, AmeriCorps, which is that the person has to show up for a virtual training program tomorrow. We would just send a message, and the district director can send a message to his partnering or mentor person at VISTA, whose name is escaping me right now.
Those are the N. I can't pronounce it.
Nitre,
Yeah.
and to Kayla, and she can participate tomorrow as long as that would go through. So what we have before us is an opportunity to bring someone on who has very, very strong technical writing skills. She's written SOPs before by interviewing all kinds of technical people, engineers and the like, and at Socorro Tech, and she, grant writer, successful grant writer, and has loves community engagement, has a record of doing that. So yes, things will improve, and there's a chance that she could meet our needs. We have needs in this area. If we get the EDA money, we're going to still have to write more grants to help fund certain things. For our restoration, we're going to need money to help pay for some of this. If we apply for the legacy, Land of Enchantment legacy funding, we need help doing that. The staff can't write every grant. We miss a lot of opportunities because we just don't have the personnel. The committee can't write every grant. But I think having a person who wants to come on board, at least that's what I understand, it wouldn't hurt to approve it. If it doesn't work, it's not because we didn't make it at least an effort of trying. With that, I yield. Happy for any questions or motion as you see fit, Mr. Chair. I yield.
Okay, so the floor is open for questions or comments from our board supervisors. Supervisor Bonine, I can read your body language. I can see you have something on your mind. So, sir, you have the floor.
This is Supervisor Bonine. I don't know. I mean, I understand the need that we have for capacity building. I understand the need we have for grants. I guess my hesitation is just simply that I'm not convinced right now that we've got enough direction. I mean, we've just got so many irons in the fire, and every meeting we come to, it's, we've got 5 new opportunities. That's an exaggeration, but there's always new things coming up, and it's like, I'm a little nervous, I guess, about jumping out there and getting, because I've done enough grant writing, and when you get a grant, then there's all sorts of reporting requirements. There's all sorts of performance requirements, and you have to have an awesome track record, or you don't get those opportunities in the future. And, I guess I'm a little hesitant about I'm hesitant. I guess I'm just hesitant about the opportunity, and if it's something we should do or not. I don't know. I mean, I will leave it at that, I guess. I'm kind of Switzerland here. I could go either way.
This is Chairman Cameron. Thank you, Supervisor Bonine, for your candor and giving us an opportunity to take a pause. I'm gonna ask Supervisor Bach if he has any thoughts he'd like to share.
Supervisor Baku. As Madam Vice Chair had mentioned, that the possibility of her being able to write grants, is that the only thing that she could be used for within the district? Or is there a much broader agreement in that? I yield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I see you with your nod. You're allowing me to answer the question. Okay, so the description that we put forward is to for someone who'd help work on also research on some of the issues that we're dealing with when we try and restore after the fire, like fire adapted, climate adapted approaches, fire management issues. So there's a certain amount of desk work. So someone who has strong technical writing skills could definitely fit into those kinds of things that Andrew envisioned when he wrote this. So it would engage in basic research on overlapping questions, that we are facing, and would also work with partners. And this particular person, actually, Kayla, has one of the strengths that she has was being able to take a project from start to finish and really following through and asking the right questions. So she could do more than just grant writing. I think this person loves community engagement work, has done things like that. So helping us with getting the community more engaged in other areas, like with surveys or outreach or stuff like that. I could see the person helping out other programmatic areas that we have potentially, depending on the needs, like for education, for conservation. Yeah. The gardens, all of that stuff. So I hope that answered the question. And Megan, could you pass the lavender cookies around too, please? Thank you. With that, I yield.
Okay. So I think where we find ourselves is we're at the 11th hour here, and there is a tight timeline here where there needs to be a green light if that's the wishes of the board in this particular opportunity, and that has to be done quickly. I know there were some druthers to have done this sooner. It's just where we find ourselves for different reasons. The virtual training, as I'm understanding it, is something that these VISTA volunteers need to do, but it's akin to what we do when we have the supervisor training, which is a virtual, walk through, the different modules and such. I don't know the details of that, but I'm envisioning that's kind of the check the boxes, if you will. So I was understanding that there's time to do that. And the only other thing that crossed my mind is this person isn't Socorro currently. Yeah. So I often wonder about anybody that volunteers. This is just my personal question. You go somewhere and you're going to stake out part of your life to give something and get something back. And I've never volunteered like that ever in my life. So I don't know how that worked. People make it work, and it's a lifestyle, and they love it, and it works. And so who am I to judge whether that should be allowed or not? And she's local, and it sounds like she's already found housing for herself. And so it's like, this is something that she's very much interested in, apparently. And so the question is, do we provide the opportunity and see what we gain from it, or do we not? I think that's basically it. So yes or no.
How about my input, Chair?
Well, you're most welcome to have that if you want that
I've already
floor, you
given-
can ask for it.
I've already given it to you and I haven't heard a response.
I think I acknowledge that onboarding would be a challenge, and that there would be some time impacts. And again, not knowing exactly what the deliverables were, because honestly, from the very beginning, that was never really crystal clear anyway. It was rather nebulous. And so I think some of that thinking came from you. And so, in terms of what you were thinking when you were putting that all together, in terms of what you were interested in terms of what time packs you would be willing to absorb, I can't speak to. But there must have been some acknowledgement on your part that to even pursue this from the beginning, that you were willing to do that. Am I incorrect in that?
No, you're missing my point, kind sir. My point is not that this person couldn't be a great utility. I think there's all sorts of stuff that we can do. And yes, the focus on what the exact deliverables are has been, we went from two positions doing very different things to meshing those into one. And so we really, that's been an ongoing conversation. We've had 3 different portfolio managers who've had their own input on how that scope of work looked like. My point is my challenge of bringing a person who I'm going to directly supervise in what I right now am feeling is an unhealthy work environment.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there. We're not going to get into those views right now. I'm just speaking to the fact that with the interest that was generated on your part in your conversations to even explore the VISTA program, that there obviously had to have been in your mind some ability and capacity to onboard this person and to make it work, whether it was 2 or 1. And I don't know why that's changed in your mind in terms of whether it was doable or not without you personally being involved. The capacity, can we absorb that at the district level? That's the material question. Your feelings aside.
Supervisor Baca,
Supervisor Baca, you have the floor.
move to accept. Can you please remind me her name? To offer Kayla the position for VISTA.
There's a motion on the floor to accept the application from Kayla Borkman, VISTA volunteer, to onboard and provide assistance to us as has been discussed. Is there a second to that motion? Yes.
This is Vice Chair Smith Day-Shreve. I'll second.
The motion has been seconded. I will now do a call for votes. All those in favor do so by the uplifted hand. The motion does not pass. We only had 3 votes. So there it lands. Supervisor Smith Day-Shreve?
I would ask if we could inquire from VISTA whether or not we could revisit this at another month. Maybe there's a potential to revisit this in May.
I see Director Hautzinger's hand in the, so I think he needs the floor to respond to your question.
My understanding, Vice and Chair, this is Director Hautzinger, is that as he's been trying to give us some incentives to move forward on this hiring thing, if we don't have the VMO, the VISTA member orientation completed tomorrow, we go back in the queue for FY25, which goes back into October.
So this is the chair. I interpret that to mean that there was that requirement, and because the motion did not pass, then we are looking at a future opportunity whenever that presents itself. So Vice Chair Smith Day-Shreve, if you want to inquire as to next availability, I think that's appropriate and report back to the board. It sounds like we're probably looking at next year if we're going to pursue this. And perhaps that'll, with the experience that we have now, we might be able to be more focused and crystallized in exactly what that means and what it would look like. So that's my take on what I just heard. All right. Very good. Supervisor Smith Day-Shreve, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I wanted to just thank everybody for all their input, and with that, I yield.
All right, Director Hautzinger.
We have not only Brian Harris, our attorney of record, on the line, but we also have Lee Baldwin for the AUP. Who was
thank you for that update, Director Hautzinger. So we were on the matter of The Personnel Committee, VISTA, and even though it says YCC selections, we limited to the VISTA conversation. So we will now circle back to item number 7 on the agenda, the FY23 audit AUP exit conference. IPA Baldwin, you've connected with us, and thank you for your time. I will now turn the floor over to you so that you can update or conduct this exit conference with the board. Floor is yours, sir.
All right. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board and of the district. Apologize I wasn't able to come on right at 4. I had a hectic schedule with work and kids teacher conferences, so we all know how that goes. But I trust that you all have the chance to look at the report. I have it on my site as well, so you guys could look at it in front of you, and I can also screen share for those of us that are attending online as well.
Yeah, why don't you screen share on your side, Lee, if you don't mind?
Yes. Okay. Good. Let me set it up real quick. Okay. Verify that you have the schedule of findings and responses up on the screen. It looks like you do. So just to go over, so now that the state auditor has finalized the report, I'm able to present it to you all as a board, full board. So this was approved, I believe. I had to look. I think it was about the first week, so about March 4th. So this is the first board meeting after it was approved. So just to discuss, just what we do for an agreed upon procedure. There's certain different levels of tiers. So let me kind of bear with me. I'll scroll up here. So based on your revenue level, you all fell under the district fell under a tier 6. So there's a little more procedure. So for agreed upon procedure engagement, we had to look at steps from the state auditor, certain areas we have to test and verify. So with the tier 6, what happens is we look at there's certain areas that we look at for all agreed upon procedure engagements, but for tier 6, we look at areas such as cash, making sure that the bank reconciliations and are complete and are completed timely and reconciled to your accounting records, so like the general ledger or the report that gets submitted to the local government division at DFA. And we just verify certain disbursements, they match, that has correct approval. Has been properly approved, so there's controls in place for that. You see the invoice has been approved. Any deposits, if there's a grant agreement, it matches the accounting records, and we can see that it's been processed correctly and it matches. So we look at number areas such as that. There's an asset listing. We verify that there's an annual inventory that's being conducted and that the district is tracking the assets in terms of like journal entries. We see that there's review and approval. There's a process in place for the board to review journal entries. So we look at all those areas. And just to go over for the revenue calculation, if certain levels, so for revenue levels, we look at what the total amount is. So in this case, anything 500,000 and over, you're required to have a full-blown audit. So the district falls under a tier 6. So that the total revenues based on the agreed upon procedure that we did came out to be $439,970. It initially was $491,000, but there was we reclassified by about $65,000. That wasn't related to revenue, but instead it was initially recorded as revenue or as an inflow of funding, because that was a loan that was obtained from another district or soil and conservation district. So that was treated as a liability. Otherwise, if that was a revenue, the district was at 491,000. So in the district, you're very close to needing a full-blown audit. And I think that could be one of the discussions we have as we get ready for the new year. What is the revenue sources or revenue levels looking to be at for FY24? Because if it's at 500,000, then now you're subject to an audit. So there's more involved in that. We can discuss that as well. But for purposes of your revenue level for 2023, it was 439,970. So I just wanted to show that level. And then the next thing we'll go through. There were 3 findings this year, so there were no new findings, but there were 3 findings that repeated from a previous year. So bank reconciliations. This has been a finding since 2016, and for 2023, and a lot of it was related to just and it was a repeat from last year because that was my first year doing the agreed upon procedure. There was I guess the understanding was there was a turnover in the office manager or business manager position, and that's where Megan had come in after the fact. So there was some catch up last year that unfortunately went over into 2023. So last year, the bank reconciliations, several of them were not completed. In this case, in this case, I have, if you could look at the finding on page 13. The business manager started, so Megan had started with the district around November 2022. So bank reconciliations prior to November were not completed. So in this case, I mean, unfortunately, it's going to be a finding for this year, but I can see a lot of instances where the bank reconciliations going forward have been completed. So I anticipate for 2024, all bank reconciliations will have been completed. So it's just, unfortunately, it was a carryover from last year just due to the turnover in the business manager position. But so I wanted to point that out. And I said when there's a repeat finding, we note if management has made progress or has not made progress. In this case, in 2022's agreed upon procedure engagement, there were several, just majority of the 3 bank accounts, and I believe last year might have been a few extra bank accounts, did not have reconciliations done. In this case, there were still a few that were not completed, but it was in that period prior to November 2022. So there is an improvement in that. A lot more reconciliations were completed, but I think for next year, this should be a finding that's resolved. Is there any questions on that?
Any questions, board supervisors? This is the chair. Supervisor Bonin, you have the floor.
Supervisor Bonine, so is this done on a fiscal year or a calendar year?
That for purposes of this agree or the engagement, it's a fiscal year, so June 30th.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, so yeah, unfortunately, yeah, we looked at prior to November 2022, so that was from July 2022 to November, so that was about 4 months. And then on
this is, excuse me for just a second. This is Chairman Camarena. Our business manager, Megan McCready, is asked for the floor. Megan, you have the floor.
This is Business Manager McCready. I'd like to kind of offer a little bit of clarification on this finding as well. When I started, I did not realize that I was supposed to be reconciling all 3 bank accounts because one is a CD and the savings. I thought it was just the Wells Fargo account I was supposed to be reconciling. It wasn't until I got the previous year's audit that I realized it was all 3. And that's why this year does have the finding on it, is because I didn't know. Now I know, and yes, this will not be a finding again next year. In all the situations as far as bank reconciliations have been resolved.
Thank you, Business Manager McCready. Director Atzinger, you've asked for the floor. You have it, sir.
Thank you, Chair Camarena. Just a quick note. The best of my recollections is when our our previous CPA/IPA, Johnny Mangu, did not require bank reconciliations for certificates of deposit. He explicitly said that wasn't required. So I think Lee has gone, either the rules have changed or Lee's being especially attentive to details, but just to say that when you walked into your job, we did not understand we had to do anything but the general bank reconciliation and our savings account, and did not have to do the certificate of deposit. We now have a new business model, so we can attend to that, not a problem. I'm just making that reference in guidance we've gotten from previous CPAs.
All right, this is Chairman Camarena. Mr. Baldwin, you have the floor back, sir.
Yes, and that, like, that could differ by IPA. I know, as comments I've had. So when I receive my peer review or someone's audited the work I've done, that's been a comment. So even if there's no activity in a bank account, we want to see that it's being reconciled. So when we see documentation that a bank rec was done, even if there's no activity, that shows that somebody is maintaining and really just keeping an eye on those accounts, that even if there's little activity, but then that's just evidence that they're being periodically reviewed. Okay. And moving on to the next findings. So this has been a repeat since 2018. It's a lack of documentation for cash receipts. So that we just modified the previous year's finding. So what we have here, last year there was a few instances, I believe I have to look at it specifically, but didn't have any documentation of approval. So there was a few instances last year, so this is different. So we just have it being as a repeated finding, a modified and repeated. But in this case, we look at so many transactions. So for purposes of this year, it was 20 disbursements, so 20 transactions. So of those 20, we looked at, we test, we get the invoice, get the purchase order. The purchase order should be approved, put in place before the invoice is ever incurred or paid. So in this case, there were three invoices that had purchase orders. So the invoice was incurred first. So when we saw that the purchase order date was after the invoice date, that's considered an after the fact purchase order. So it's a finding in regard that the purchase order is what approves the purchase to occur, or for the district to incur the expense. So when we see an invoice being or an expense being incurred first and then the purchase order being approved afterwards, that's why there's a finding for that purpose. Is there any questions or discussions needed for that?
Supervisor Smith-Day-Sharif has a question. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Baldwin, thank you. I really appreciate your explaining this to us in manners in which we can understand, at least speaking for myself, I can. So I did have a question, however. We have a resolution that we passed some years ago that gives spending authority to a staff member. In this case, it's the district director, for up to $1,000 without, for things that go wrong. I mean, just, not for, a down payment on a Cadillac or something, but but there could be an instance, for example, where that's supposed to come back to us and then we approve it afterwards according to the resolution. So does that mean that if our district director goes out and spends $999 to, let us say, replace a valve that went bad and we got water spilling all over the building, and we approve it afterwards, so that's a purchase order that we approved after the fact, would we get an audit finding for that?
It is potential that could be a finding, and unfortunately, if the district director has authority to make purchases below a certain dollar amount, that still, I think once the purchase order has been issued, then that purchase can be made in that level. But the purpose of the purchase order is to authorize or to verify that there's budget for a purchase to be made. So that would need to be in place. From a sound accounting point of view, if you have a purchase order process, that the purchase order should be issued and approved before a purchase is made if you're using a purchase order for each invoice or expense that's incurred.
Mr. Baldwin, if I may, Mr. Chair, I think our resolution states that such a purchase or an expenditure would be for a budget approved item that the board has approved. This is just allowing, some discretionary ability that when decisions have to be made, without waiting for 30 days for a board meeting. So would there be a finding in that case? Thank you. I yield.
I think you just have to, just have the documentation that an emergency purchase was needed. I think under the circumstances, it just depends. I would just say if you can document that this was an emergency purchase and it's been authorized, it was approved at the board meeting, but a purchase needed to be made immediately. So it's just a matter of what's documented versus, okay, the expense was made and then the purchase order was approved at the board meeting. Whereas from a point of view, I'm looking at it as an auditor, I see there's no documentation in place to explain something like that occurring. So let's say if there was an emergency purchase and yes, you had to go against the purchase order being issued first due to certain emergency and it was documented and then brought up at the board meeting as well, then, depending on the auditor, we can make an exception or we can say, unfortunately, it's going to be a finding. So but it depends. But I would say if there's documentation to explain the emergency and then the board followed the procedure to approve it at the board meeting, noting it was an emergency, then that would be something I could be lenient on if I was to look at it.
Okay, there's a couple of hands here on this end, Mr. Baldwin, so I'm going to go first with Director Hotzinger and then Business Manager McCready.
Thank you, Chair Camarena. Again, this is Director Hotzinger. Lee, thanks for that description. Again, arching back to when this motion, I think it was like a 2020 motion was passed. It was at the time when Johnny Mangu was in, and his guidance to us was, in between board meetings, you need to make these clear business-related expenses. There's no reason you can't have a payment voucher, get in between the board meetings generated with at least some board sign-off, so that the expense is actually it is pre-approved before it's typically in the most typical instance it would be pre-approved through our vouchering system, and then that's brought to the full board's awareness at the next board meeting.
Yeah.
Does that sound like the right business practice?
I think so. That's one of the steps to initiate the process. So typically it's the voucher. There's the initial approval of a purchase to be made, and then you would go and turn that into a purchase order. And then from the purchase order, that's the official approval, and then the invoice. But I think just documenting if there is a situation where you had to bypass that first and to incur the expense, then the voucher would be the most basic kind of the initiation of a purchase that's needed. So it's not like if your process is to have the voucher, then the PO, and then the invoice, but you had an emergency, so you incurred the expense first and then did the voucher, then that can possibly be an issue. If that first step is to initiate wasn't followed, then from an audit point of view, we could say, okay, rather than there's an emergency situation and then the board approved it after the fact, but the voucher wasn't initiated to begin the process at all. So we would want to see that there's at least an initiation prior to the purchase being made, and then typically we would want the purchase order to be approved. But I think from an audit point of view, as long as it's documented, there's a situation that arises that required an expediency in the expense to be incurred prior to the purchase order being approved at the board meeting.
Okay. This is Chairman Cameron. Thank you, Mr. Baldwin, for that. I think there's one more question here by Business Manager McCready, and then maybe we can continue on and wrap this up.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Baldwin. This is Business Manager McCready. My question is, can you please provide me with those 3 transactions so that I can use them as a learning tool?
Okay. Yeah, I'll double check. I thought I had sent it because I know he had asked at the exit, but I will make sure to verify if I sent it or not, and if not, I'll go ahead and send those specific transactions.
Thank you very much. I'd just like the opportunity to be able to learn from my mistakes. That way I don't repeat them
Okay.
over and over again. If I can alleviate our findings, I'm going to, and using the findings that we do have as teaching moments will prevent me from repeating them. So with that, I yield back and I thank you very much.
Okay.
This is Chairman Cameron. Before we proceed, I would just like to acknowledge that Supervisor Pam Cordova has joined us. She had indicated earlier to me that she would be late to the meeting, and so I just want to acknowledge that she is present, and welcome, Supervisor Cordova. All right. So, Mr. Baldwin, if you would proceed on to conclusion, it would be much appreciated.
Okay. And then the final finding, we say, is a finding in 2022. So it's a repeat for 2023. Inaccurate reports to the DFA local government division. So in this case, we look at the quarterly reports that are filed, and we make sure that the general ledger and your reconciled cash balance typically should match. And if they do, typically that matches with what you're reporting as cash on the quarterly reports. And if there's a difference, that could be grounds for a finding. So in this case, there were the general ledger. So it looks like the June 30th, the fourth quarterly report, the revenues in the general ledger were $612,505, but there was reported revenue of $687,979. So that was a difference of $75,474. And then the expenditure in the general ledger was $699,897, but was $710,429 in the quarterly report, which was a difference of $10,532. So that was a previous finding, just the end of year balance not reconciling to what's reported as revenue and expense and cash to that what's reported to the local government division. Are there any questions on that?
This is Chairman Camarino. So just for clarification, so that there isn't any misunderstanding or appearance of any wrongdoing with these figure discrepancies, can we just clarify just how that happened and what the circumstances were? Because again, we were in a pivotal time and transition. So I'm kind of looking at my business manager, McCready, and I think she'd like to weigh in on a clarification. So go ahead. You have the floor, Megan.
Mr. Chair, the clarification that I can offer to this one is that I made a transactional mistake. We had to reimburse our friends group for our educational assistant at one point in time. They gave us the money to cover that individual salary, which made it look like income for us. I misclassified it whenever I had to give the reimbursement back to them, and I did it after our fourth quarter was closed. And so it threw off what our revenue numbers were. I have since been scolded by our Chris Fogel CPA to not touch things that happened in a prior period, and if I have questions to please go to him first. So yeah, this was my mistake by misclassifying the funds we received from the Friends for our past educational assistant, Delicia Salazar. With that, I yield.
I want to just add my editorial. I think our business manager was trying to be thorough, and that's her nature. We are impressed with the due diligence that she does in all of these things, and she can only work to the level that she understands, and obviously is very willing to learn from those misjudgments. But they were not intended to be anything other than a processing error, and that's so. Thank you, Megan. I appreciate you for all that you do. All right, Mr. Baldwin, I'll yield the floor back to you.
Yeah, and just the $10,000 difference, that explains it. And then just to point out, when I said difference of 75,000, that's the 65,000 loan proceeds that was recorded as revenue. So once you took that out, that's the difference. So if we didn't reclassify that 65,000 loan proceed as revenue and instead put it as a liability, the district would have fell into that audit threshold of over 500,000 in revenue. So that's why that was reclassified. So when you see that change as well, it's like, okay, well, then that doesn't match to the local government division report, the quarterly report now. So, from the state auditor's point of view, if it doesn't match, then there has to be a finding. So that's why I had to record that as a finding, unfortunately. Good. Any other questions?
Any other questions, board members? I don't see any takers. Okay, so have we arrived at the conclusion, Mr. Baldwin, or is there more yet to do?
Yes, I know once you go through the contract process again, that's why I was reminding everybody just to, and especially Megan, just to track the revenue balance to see where you all are at as you get towards the end of the fiscal year. So June 30th, 2024. So if you're getting closer and closer to that $500,000 threshold to where you need to have an audit, and if you need to have an audit, there's more involved than what we do as the agreed upon procedure engagement.
Okay, so with that then, am I to conclude that finishes the conference?
Yes.
All righty. Well, thank you for your services, sir. We take our fiduciary responsibilities very seriously, and we're not perfect, obviously. I think we've made improvements, and I think we'll continue to measure up to the expectations that we have of ourselves, as well as others may have of us. So with that, I thank you and look forward to continue to work with you if that's the case.
All right, thank you. Yeah, and I'll just point out that that's over all I have to present. But yes, there's been a notable improvement in terms of the internal controls that are being followed and implemented, and accuracy of information. So I know from working with Megan when she had just started last year, and she was responsible for a lot of information that for the fiscal year that she wasn't there for. So now this is her this past year. This was her year where she's been familiar with a lot of the processes and a lot of the information. So I can definitely see a notable improvement.
All righty, we appreciate that. Megan is heaving a big sigh of relief.
All right. Excellent.
All right, thank you for that, and appreciate all that you've done to help us, sir.
All right, thank you.
All right, let's move on then to budget and accounting. I think that's where we're at. The YCC. Thank you. My vice chair did point that out to me, and my hearing is not all it used to be. So, yes, can we, in the interest of time, can we try to keep the next items as brief as we can?
Johnny, do you mind if I do this on your behalf? So Johnny is running the interviewing for our YCC core. We've already done some recruitment. We have flyers out. We have 9 folks who have been queued up for interviews. We've already talked to 3 of them, two of whom are repeat customers. And as I mentioned in my staff report, just can't tell you how awesome it is to hear from these young ladies, Dulce Batista and Michaela Chavez, at what a well-rounded, enriching, skilled learning experience they had last year. And one of them wants to be a pediatrician, the other wants to be a chemical engineer, but they both say that this is just fundamentally important to how they're going to live their lives, and they can't wait to learn more. And one of them said a great compliment, which is there's just a great team dynamic at place. So we all get some credit for that, but especially Johnny Chavez and Justine Diaz, who was last year's crew boss. So I just wanted to make that note. This is a seasonal position. We have the authority from the board to make hires on seasonal positions. So I don't presume there's a board motion needed, but we wanted to give you an update. We're hoping we can make job offers in the very coming days, and I think it's really important as we fill out the 6th and 7th slot that we're real explicit in our recruitment up in East Valencia. So Johnny, anything I'm missing there?
This is John Chavez. I believe you got it all, District Director.
Thank you, Director Otzinger. Supervisor Smith-Sharif, you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Vice Chair Smith-Day-Sharif. So I'm seeing 9 so far, and I know I wanted to let you both know that I sometimes on Nextdoor, these posts come up and someone says, oh, you know, my son's looking for a job outdoor kind of thing. He's 18. I said, apply for the YCC, and I put our phone number down. So my point is, say you get 7 here. I have a question. Is one possibly the youth from Isleta, and 2, are any of these from East Valencia? And if not, can we outreach up there at all to try and get someone from the community in?
I believe I answered that question, Vice. We don't have any from East Valencia to our knowledge at this point in time. Our one Isleta crew member from last year, Francisco Cayete, excuse the mispronunciation of his last name. He expressed interest, but he hasn't responded to this solicitation. So as at present, we no longer have an Isleta representative, and we don't have at present time anyone from East Valencia, which again in both instances I think is unfortunate, and I'd like to work in the next several weeks to attend to that.
Supervisor, this is Johnny Chavez. I am working with Jasmine, who's the new county recreation manager. She's very supportive, and she's been helping us out there. She's been putting them up at both of the community centers and trying to spread the word.
Supervisor Smith-Day-Sharif.
Thank you. As a follow-on, we have recruited from, to the churchgoers. Maybe we let the church administrator know as well. And if you do interview these and more, and we can't offer them to everybody, it's a great way of us, having a file started on people that might be a good fit for something else. So I think it's really great that so far we have this much interest, and I hope that can be grown. With that, I yield, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. This is Chairman Camarena. Follow-on thought, Director.
Just last thought on this. There's a million ways to do this. I don't know what the right way is, but what we've done in the last 2 years is we've taken time out of our Sundays and gone and boothed outside of the church on both of the Sunday sessions at the chapel up by the Catholic Church up in Meadow Lake. Unless someone tells me differently, that's my MO right now, is to get more in community engagements. So plus as Johnny has said, we have all the flyers at the obvious places, the community centers, the mini mart, and other locations.
Okay, I think that concludes that item there. Let's move on to budget and accounting. First item is review and approval of the month of February 2024 expenditures. Okay. So our treasurer is deferring to, this is the chair, our treasurer is deferring to Megan at this point. So Business Manager McCready, you want to walk us through? Yeah, I can call up my copy here.
This is Business Manager McCready. Thank you, Chair. So our monthly reconciliation report, our statement beginning balance was $204,980.33. And below that, you can see where the checks and payments and deposits are. The statement ending balance was $204,936.89. There is a difference between what our statement balance is and what our bank register balance is. As you can see in the top left corner, it's for some uncleared payroll checks that are still outstanding. After those payroll checks will clear, both our bank statement and our general ledger will match at that point, and I can answer any questions if you all have them.
All right, I see Supervisor Smith-Day-Sharif has her hand up. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Megan, I have a question. On page 2 of this report, and thank you both, Treasurer and Megan, for putting this together every month. I'm looking at the second page under additional information, uncleared checks as of February 29th. So my part A of this question, have any of those 3 checks cleared? Megan.
This is Business Manager McCready. The answer to your question is no. None of those 3 checks have cleared.
Up until now.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much. My second part is, what is our current policy if we have one? Is it for 90 days and that's it? This check goes stale? And if we don't have a policy like that, should we have one? I just, forgive me for asking about the policy because I cannot remember at this moment. With that, I yield, Mr. Chairman.
This is Business Manager McCready. Unfortunately, I cannot answer the question as to what the policy states as of now. I've never received a paper payroll check, so I don't know if they say void after X amount of days. I would say that it's safe to assume that they do because they get generated via our payroll company, and usually payroll checks of that nature say 60 days. But that is the best knowledge I have. If that is not the case, I can get with our payroll company and establish a policy at the board's pleasure and with some guidance of how you'd like that to read. With that, I yield back.
Thank you. This is the chair. Thank you, Business Manager McCready. Director Hutzinger, I see you, your hand. You have the floor.
I hope this is a helpful comment from the director here. I thought we covered this in 2 months ago when we went through our new policies. Wasn't this a topic where we're trying to have an internal policy for the time period that we're going to allow? We talked 90, and I thought, didn't we land on 60, something like that? We had some recent conversation on this front. So if I'm understanding the pleasure of the board, let's do a little digging on staff and make sure we understand what the bank's policy is, and we'll articulate that to leadership. And if we need to have something more stringent internally, then so be it. But let's at least capture what the bank's default policy is with these checks.
Okay, is that sufficient guidance there, Business Manager?
Business Manager McCready, yes, I can do that. I'll reach out to our payroll company as well as Wells Fargo and see kind of what their standard is. I'll report back and see where the board and district director feel comfortable. And if need be, I can void out these checks and have them reissued, but maybe let the individuals know that they need to do something about them with guidance of how you guys would like me to handle these outstanding ones currently.
All right, thank you for that. Supervisor Smith-Sharif, did you have a follow-up comment? Okay, all right, we're good. So with that, are there any other questions regarding the expenditure reconciliation report for the period ending February 29th, 2024? Looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Supervisor Bonan, you have the floor.
I move that we approve the reconciliation report.
Is there a second to the motion?
Baca, I second that motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that the board approve the reconciliation report as reviewed and submitted for the time period ending February 29th, 2024. I will now do a vote. All those in favor by the uplifted hand. Any opposed? Motion carries. I keep forgetting to raise my hand. That was not that I opposed. That was just belated. Okay. All righty. So moving on then. Replacement of 2 laptops.
If I can run with that one, this is a staff product, but we back in 2021, I think it was February of 2021, we replaced the whole stable of laptops that and computers that we were using here. That's these models you see right in front of you, these MSIs, which have now clocked out to 3 years, and we're having problems with several of them. And so instead of replacing all of them in one fell swoop, because mine's still working, let me get some more juice out of it until it completely dies. I believe Bagan's is still working, but Laura's has been broken in several ways. The track thing doesn't work, her battery's deficient. And Johnny's got the same computer as all of us, and Johnny has a much higher data requirement than we do. It takes him a lot of time to download files and do the more geospatial work that he does. So in front of the board, we request support for us doing this piecemeal. Money's not super plenty, and so we put in front of the board a request to buy 2 computers as described in that note here for a total of $1,450.08 and that it's a Lenovo V15 15.6 inch laptop. So there it is.
Any questions from the board on the request to replace the 2 laptops as so designated? Supervisor Smith-Sharif?
Chairman, Megan, I just have a question. We're still getting taxed. Aren't we not supposed to get taxed because we're a local public body? I mean, I did read some IRS stuff on that, so I was just wondering, because that could make a difference on bigger purchases like this. Thank you. I yield.
This is Business Manager McCready. The answer to your question is yes, that it should be the case. I'm still fighting with the IRS and the state secretary's office to get us the forms we need to make us completely tax exempt. I'm going to have to spend a full day out of the office and in Santa Fe and at the IRS building to actually get this across the finish line. I have been waiting now for 2 months for the IRS to send me paperwork that they said would take 7 to 10 business days. Last week, I waited on hold for half my shift. I'm going to have to physically go into these places and get this made right.
Supervisor Bonine, do you have a retort or a response?
Just, I can confirm what she's saying. The New Mexico SRM had the same issue trying to, and it's a nightmare process. I do want to comment about this. I'm fine with buying computers, but I'm a little concerned about moving sideways. And it seems like, when you're buying technology, it's my thought anyway, that you probably ought to, within a budget, move as, get as much bang for the buck as you can. And just, I don't know, maybe I'm just concerned that this is just a sideways move. I mean, it'll work for a while, I guess, but.
Well, I appreciate that concern, Supervisor Bonine. This is Director Housinger. Sorry for jumping in. Johnny researched this, looked at a handful of different models, looked at different vendors who could provide said models, and this is not this is a significant upgrade to the current machines. Not only get a lot more RAM, but with a much bigger hard drive. So it's got a lot of improved capacity compared. So it's not a big jump up, but I would say your depiction as a sideways movement isn't quite accurate.
So this is the chairman. The question that I would have kind of as an add-on is, are there no state contracts for these kinds of things that we could take advantage of? I mean, the state buys this stuff by the truckload, so surely there's some opportunity to look at that if we haven't already.
Not that we know. I would just beg the board's indulgence to not make easier decisions much of a process burden.
I don't think it's an easier decision, sir. I think all I'm asking is that we do due diligence and take advantage of state offered opportunities, because we can do our own research and we may be missing a value that the state offers. Because I know that General Services Administration for the federal government covers all this kind of stuff for the federal government. Surely the state has a similar procurement process. And okay, well, let's look into it then. Yes, Supervisor Smith-Sharif, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if we delay this until next month, until we find out if we can get something that's, at least this level, if not more, but for maybe a dollar amount through the state, can we survive for this month? Or are we being reported to that we've got a disaster and we have to approve something? I yield. Thank you.
So I'm going to interject. There's another way also to establish a way forward, and that is for the board to approve a certain dollar level that we want to have you work with. And then if you do find something that the state offers for less, then go for it. If you don't, and this is your best value, as long as it's in that dollar threshold, then you don't have to play this back and forth kind of a thing. So that would be my offer to try to get us moving off the center here.
I appreciate that, Chair.
Right. So what dollar figure are we looking at? Is it 1,500? Is it no more than 1,750? I mean, what are we talking about?
I would just assume we're only going to do better if we find a state price list. Johnny was very confident that these are quality machines. with the unfortunate taxing. So I
Well, that's
instead of not to exceed 1,500, can we say not to exceed 1,750? Give us a little wiggle room.
yes, and again, that's probably another reason to try to go through the state vending procurement process, because they're not going to charge tax. So.
Except they're going to say, no, you're not a state entity.
Oh, well, yeah, that's our world. So I'm going to turn to the supervisors now. I think I've heard the request for authorization up to not to exceed 1,750. What's the pleasure of the board? Can I get a motion to that effect then? There's no more other comments. Supervisor Bonin, you have the floor.
Supervisor Bonin, I move that we approve purchase of laptops not to exceed $1,750
Total cost, right?
total cost.
Yeah. Is there a second to the motion on the floor?
Supervisor Baca, before I second that motion, could I see that invoice one more time, or the estimate on the purchase of that? So our proposal was to not exceed 1,750, but their request is for 1,450. Is that, so we're motioning to approve the purchase of these laptops? Okay, I'll second the motion.
Okay, the motion has been seconded. Before I call for a vote, Supervisor Smith-Sharif, did you have a final thought?
No, I can answer.
Okay, very good. So all those in favor of the motion as described, so indicate by the uplifted hand. The motion passes unanimously. All right. Yeah, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I really do want us to think first to go to the state's procurement process as far as what contracts they already have in place for goods and services, so that we can say, yes, we checked it, we got a better deal. Yeah, okay. And well, yes, because they already vet all that and they establish their prices and everything and so forth, and you don't have to do any of that. So
Experience we had in building our dirt pad, where we went through CES Inc., a quasi-state organization who does all that pre-competition work for us, and we just select people who are on their list.
Right.
Which hopefully is the way we're going to do EDA if we're so blessed.
Let's hope so. All right. So with that, then let's move on to the maintenance building insurance increase. Business Manager McCready, I know you brought that to my attention in a text message, and I said probably ought to have that before the board.
Director. Yes, there has been a proposal for an insurance increase for the maintenance building. Where we sit right now with what we have expensed in the insurance premium is not enough to cover the maintenance building should anything happen to it. Because of inflation and the cost of materials being what they are, the dollar value that we have insured of the maintenance building is not enough to replace said maintenance building. So what has been asked of me through Acuity via Bruce Foster is for us to increase what we pay in coverage for the maintenance building. And I'm trying my hardest to pull up the numbers.
Okay.
Have you share on screen?
It might have come from Tanya. My apologies. I am trying to find the exact numbers as we speak, and I can't remember if they came from Bruce, who is the head of that division, or from Tanya that works directly under him. So if you'll bear with me for just a moment, I will get these numbers for you guys.
All right. So let's move on then to the next item, unless you're going to be involved in that one too. The maintenance building shower stall expense. Okay. I don't know. So we are doing this now because I guess that's a question in my mind.
For Housinger, Chairman, can I respond to that
Yes.
question? This was a idea hatched 10 days ago between Teresa and myself to give us this opportunity as we recruit different people. It was specifically in an AmeriCorps VISTA context, but in general, we have real low utility of that building at this point in time. The shower stall wasn't part of the EDA improvement. The EDA improvement is taking the loft and improving those two apartments to be a code, and so this is complementary to that effort, and it just gives us more options. And it was originally part of the design. We just never followed through. And in fact, part of the reason was because the people who cut the hole through the foundation cut it in the wrong place for the original shower stall, so we had to redo that. So I just want to say, even if it's untethered to an AmeriCorps near-term opportunity, it's still a really nice thing to have. This is dirty work out here. Sometimes people are going to fall in mud holes, and it'd be nice to have a shower on property to help them clean up.
So yes, so the questions that's kind of surfacing here in the minds of some of us, what is the cost, and have we budgeted this in our regular budget? Is there some reflection of this expenditure in our budget?
The cost I'm seeing right here from the first quote is from Antonio Jaramillo for $7,500 for the installation of a new shower to include shower pan, shower walls, enclosure, concrete demolition, and price including all labor. And then the second quote, okay, I'm not seeing the second quote in here. We don't. Passengers is en route, and we've asked for a third vendor. So yeah, again, any urgency associated with this is now taken off, but it is not embedded within our current forecasted budget, but we think this is an expense that we could find if it's deemed important enough.
So given that, can I get some feedback and let's try to kind of wrap this one up?
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Bonine.
I think we should table this.
Is there concurrence
I would
with that?
still move to
Any
the
other
table.
Supervisor Buck? I see that you want to
I was
weigh
going
in.
to
Supervisor Baca, I second that.
Okay. So the motion is then on the table to just go ahead and second this. Table this.
Is that a motion?
Yeah.
Do you
Yes,
motion to
it's
not
to
do
lay it on
things?
the table, and we can bring it up another time. And then
So I guess that's the question. Do we need a motion here? Or do we
Yeah.
just table it?
yeah, we have to motion to
Right.
table it.
Okay. So because it's on the agenda, what did we do with it?
Yeah.
So can I get a motion to table this?
Did.
That's
Okay,
what I did.
and you seconded it. All right, thank you very much. It's getting to be long. All right. Okay, before we do anything with the insurance increase.
Yeah.
Got to take a vote real quick. All those in favor of tabling this shower stall expense? So indicate. Motion carries. Now we're back to the insurance increase.
This is Business Manager McCready. This is verbatim how the email reads. Good morning, Megan. I hope you have been doing well. The insurance company wants to increase the limit of insurance for the maintenance building to $314,759. We are currently at $178,614. The new limit would be more in line with the current replacement cost. Please let me know if we can proceed with the change. Feel free to call or email me with any questions. Thank you, Bruce. And this would be paid over a year. This isn't like just one large chunk that we have to, this is like an annual.
What's the difference in cost, current versus proposed?
It's 314 versus 178. So what does that end up being? 100?
Well, I'm
No, no,
talking
no.
about the premium.
Premium
Yeah.
cost.
So the difference between the two numbers is 136,145, 145. Yeah, sorry.
So
Yeah,
I think the
in
clarification
premium.
question is the difference in the premium between the current coverage level versus the proposed coverage level.
Which is
What more does it cost us to cover for a higher value?
So he didn't call that out explicitly, and I kind of wanted to know how you guys feel about some of this so that I can get some different numbers from him. But if we take that 314 and divide it over 12 months, it's like 27,000.
No.
No,
we don't
I
pay
know.
for it.
I
No,
This-
that's
this-
not what we
this is
pay for the
the
premium.
building cost, and there's an embedded premium associated with
Right.
the cost that we'll be paying off of. We're not paying this amount. But the premium to protect that building for $314,000 worth
Mhm.
is gonna have an increased premium. So I think we're still trying to figure out what that number is.
so because we don't have those numbers at this point, can I get a motion to table this? I know.
And
Teresa? Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
This is Vice Chair Smith Sharif. I move that we lay the maintenance building insurance increase cost on the table till next meeting.
Is there a second to the motion? It's been moved and seconded that we table the insurance increase assessment conversation till next board meeting or some future date. All those in favor, so indicate by uplifted hand. Motion carries. Let's move on then to ledger entries, bank account, a review and approval. Are we reviewing ledger entries? Or is it just a matter of reminding ourselves that this is something that we do or need to? Okay, Supervisor Smith-Sharif.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of our findings in the past has been that the board isn't approving the ledger entry. So if you're able to sign this and that stands for board approval, and ledger entries are things like what you just signed today was a bank account for payroll. But I had thought in our findings in the past that the board was supposed to approve that. I know that, but Mangu did in the past. So that's why I said it should be on the agenda and we should look at it and approve it. If you want, we table it to next meeting till we get more details.
I would motion that we table this until the next meeting so we can discuss it properly.
And given that, this is the chair, and given that, if you could just come back with a how-to type approach or proposal and what that would mean. Okay, and that would be very helpful. So motion has it been seconded?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion on the floor is to table this ledger entries until we have more information procedurally. And it's been seconded. All those in favor, raise uplift the sign. Okay. All right. Wow, we are now at 6:30 and we're behind. Grant, capital outlays, related updates. Okay, this information was in our packet, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything in here that I'm just going to short circuit this. There are any comments or questions from the board supervisors on any of these things?
Well, just one, did we get the capital outline, Mr. Chairman? This is Vice Chair Smith-Sharif. I mean, the governor had to sign it.
Any day now, right?
Yeah,
We don't know.
We don't know yet.
Yeah. All right. And so being that we're really tight on time here, I think if there are any material updates next go around, then we'll focus on those specifically. So with that, been doing a lot of talking. All right. So the next item on the agenda is executive session. And procedurally, the way that this reads is that per section 10-15-1, subpart H, subpart 2, personnel performance matters concerning district director. I would now state that my recommendation is that this session be closed to protect attorney-client privilege, because we do have our legal counsel. And so that will dismiss the staff and directors, although Johnny needs a couple of minutes for us to formally go into executive session. So I will now do a roll call vote.
Yeah, do you want me to?
Yes.
That?
So we will read the statement that we need to read in order for us then to motion, second, and vote on. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, this is Vice Chair Smith-Sharif. May I have the floor?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the board of the Valencia Soil and Water Conservation District monthly meeting today be closed. The authority for the closure of the meeting is section 10-15-1 H2 for limited personnel matters pertaining to performance matters of the district director. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second to the motion?
Supervisor Bonine seconds the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we enter into executive session at this time. And we need a few minutes to kind of set that up. So I will now do a roll call vote because that's required for us to go into executive session. Supervisor Bonine.
Yay.
Supervisor Cordova.
Yay.
Supervisor Baca. Supervisor Smith-Sharif.
See, yes.
And I, as Supervisor Cameron, also vote yes. So we are now entering executive session if we're ready technically. Okay, so there's a couple of minutes here delay until we have the